When a woman is close to coming back, the first thing that reawakens inside her is not love, commitment, or even desire. It is curiosity. This curiosity is subtle, quiet, and often invisible if you don't understand female psychology. Most men make the mistake of looking only for obvious signs like emotional confessions or direct messages saying she misses them. But by the time those things happen, the decision has already been made internally. Curiosity is the seed that grows before any emotional return, and it always appears before action. After a breakup or emotional separation, a woman doesn't simply detach and forget. If there was a genuine emotional bond, her feelings don't disappear, they go dormant. She pulls back not because she no longer cares, but because she is trying to regain emotional control. During this phase, she tells herself stories to justify leaving, stories about why it was necessary, why it was right, and why she's better off. However, those stories only work as long as she feels certain about her decision. The moment uncertainty creeps in, curiosity awakens. Curiosity begins when she wonders whether you are still the same man she left behind or if you have changed. This is critical. Women are deeply attracted to emotional growth and strength, especially when it happens without their involvement. When she senses, even subconsciously, that you are moving forward, improving your life, and not stuck in emotional neediness, her mind starts to drift back to you. She doesn't immediately miss you, she wonders about you. And wondering is far more powerful than missing. This curiosity often shows itself indirectly. She may check your social media more frequently, even if she never likes or comments. She might watch your stories consistently or unblock you after weeks or months of silence. Sometimes she asks mutual friends casual questions about you, pretending not to care while secretly gathering information. These behaviors are not random. They are her mind reopening a door she once closed, trying to see what's on the other side without stepping through yet. The reason curiosity comes first is because emotional vulnerability is risky. For a woman, returning emotionally means admitting that leaving didn't solve everything, that her feelings never fully disappeared, and that she might have misjudged the situation. That's a big emotional leap. Curiosity is safer. It allows her to observe from a distance without exposing herself. She can tell herself she's just checking or just curious, even though the emotional pull is already reactivating. Another important aspect of this curiosity is that it's comparison based. She begins unconsciously comparing her current emotional state, her dating experiences, or her life now with how she felt when she was with you. If her life hasn't improved emotionally, or if the men she's met don't make her feel the same connection, you start to stand out again. This contrast fuels curiosity even more. She wonders whether she made a mistake, whether the connection was rarer than she realized, and whether you might now be the man she wanted you to be before. At this stage, many men sabotage everything by reaching out too soon or reacting emotionally the moment they sense her attention. They interpret curiosity as readiness, but it's not. Curiosity is fragile. If she checks your profile and sees bitterness, sadness, desperation, or indirect messages aimed at her, the curiosity collapses. Her mind instantly justifies staying away. But if she sees strength, calmness, purpose, and a life that doesn't revolve around her absence, curiosity deepens. Silence combined with self improvement is what allows curiosity to grow into emotional pull. Sometimes curiosity leads her to initiate light contact. A simple hey, a reaction to a story, or a casual message that seems meaningless on the surface. This is not her coming back, it's her testing the emotional temperature. She wants to see if you're still emotionally reactive, if you're angry, if you're needy, or if you've grown. Your response matters more than your words. Calm, grounded, positive energy keeps curiosity alive. Over explaining, emotional dumping, or bringing up the past kills it instantly. What's powerful about curiosity is that it works internally even when there's no communication at all. She can be thinking about you without you knowing. Her mind fills in gaps, often idealizing moments from the past. This happens especially when you've given her space. Absence allows imagination to work, and imagination is one of the strongest drivers of emotional reconnection. The less you chase, the more room her curiosity has to expand. Curiosity also reactivates her emotional memory. She begins to remember how she felt around you, how safe or excited she once was, and how you made her feel seen. Emotional memory is stronger than logical reasoning. Even if she logically tells herself the relationship wouldn't work, her body and emotions may start responding again. This internal conflict is a clear sign she's moving closer to reconnecting. It's important to understand that curiosity doesn't mean certainty. She may pull back again after checking in. She may disappear after a brief interaction. This doesn't mean failure. It means the process is unfolding internally. Emotional reconnection is not linear. Curiosity comes in waves, and each wave becomes stronger if you remain centered and unaffected. The biggest mistake men make is trying to force curiosity into clarity. They want answers, closure, or reassurance. But when you push for clarity too early, you remove the mystery that fuels attraction. Curiosity thrives on unanswered questions. When she doesn't fully know where you stand emotionally, when she senses strength but can't quite read you, her mind keeps returning to you. This is how emotional gravity builds. True power during this phase comes from emotional self-control, when you are no longer trying to get her back, but instead focusing on becoming your strongest version. Curiosity works in your favor automatically. She feels the shift energetically. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional changes, even without direct contact. Your growth creates a contrast between who you were and who you are becoming, and that contrast is magnetic. Eventually, if curiosity is fed correctly, it evolves into emotional pull. She stops just wondering about you and starts missing how she felt with you. That's when communication becomes more frequent, deeper, and more emotionally charged. But it all starts with curiosity, the quiet, invisible signal that her emotional walls are weakening. Understanding this changes everything. Instead of chasing signs, you allow them to appear naturally. Instead of reacting emotionally, you remain grounded. Instead of trying to convince her, you let her own curiosity convince her for you. When curiosity returns, it's not something to rush, it's something to respect, protect, and allow to grow. That is how real emotional reconnection begins. When a woman begins to move from emotional distance toward reconnection, her behavior rarely shifts in a straight, obvious line. Instead of warmth and openness right away, what usually replaces her cold distance is emotional testing. This phase confuses most men because it feels contradictory. One moment she's engaging, the next she's pulling back. One message feels positive, the next feels distant or challenging. But this is not indecision, it's evaluation. Emotional testing is how a woman determines whether reconnecting with you is emotionally safe and desirable. After a breakup or a period of separation, a woman has already experienced emotional pain. Regardless of who ended things, she associates vulnerability with risk. Before she allows herself to feel deeply again, she must be sure that the man she's reconnecting with will not trigger the same emotional outcomes as before. Testing is her subconscious way of gathering proof. She's no longer trying to push you away. She's trying to see who you are now. These tests often begin subtly. She might bring up something from the past in a light but emotionally loaded way, not to argue but to observe your reaction. She may joke about something that once caused tension or casually mention a moment where you disappointed her. What she's watching for is not an apology or explanation. She's watching your emotional control. If you become defensive, emotional, or reactive, her mind immediately categorizes you as unchanged. If you remain calm, grounded, and unaffected, the test is passed. Another common test appears as inconsistency. She may message you warmly one day and then go quiet the next. This hot and cold behavior is not manipulation the way many men interpret it. It's uncertainty resolving itself. She is oscillating between curiosity and fear, desire and self-protection. Each pullback is her checking whether you will chase, panic, or pressure her. If you do, her fear is confirmed. If you don't, attraction quietly grows. Sometimes emotional testing comes in the form of mild criticism or teasing. She may say something like, "You probably changed, but you used to be so stubborn," or "I don't know if you're still the same person." These statements are invitations for you to either justify yourself or remain centered. The man who argues or tries to prove himself fails the test. The man who stays relaxed and confident communicates emotional strength without saying a word. One of the most misunderstood tests is when she mentions other men or dating experiences. This is not always meant to make you jealous, though it can feel that way. What she's really observing is whether you are emotionally secure. If you react with jealousy, insecurity, or passive aggression, it signals that reconnecting would bring emotional tension. If you respond calmly and without emotional charge, she feels safer and more drawn in. Emotional safety is one of the strongest drivers of female attraction. Testing can also show up as delayed responses. She may take hours or days to reply, even after initiating contact. This delay is not accidental. She is gauging your emotional dependence. Does your mood change based on her response time? Do you double text, over explain, or seek reassurance? Or do you remain steady, focused on your life, and respond when appropriate without urgency? Her attraction grows when she senses that you are emotionally self contained. At this stage, many men unknowingly sabotage themselves by overcorrecting. They try to be overly nice, overly available, or overly agreeable. They think passing tests means pleasing her. In reality, it means maintaining your emotional center. A woman doesn't test to see how accommodating you are, she tests. To see how grounded you are, she tests. To see how grounded you are. Strength is calm, not reactive. Another layer of emotional testing involves boundaries. She may cancel plans last minute, suggest vague meetups, or keep interactions ambiguous. This is not disrespect by default, it's exploration. She wants to see if you will tolerate behavior that goes against your self respect. A man who calmly maintains boundaries without anger or resentment demonstrates high value. A man who tolerates everything out of fear of losing her communicates weakness. It's important to understand that emotional tests are not conscious strategies. She's not sitting down and planning them. They arise naturally from her emotional state. Her mind is trying to resolve a question. Is it safe to feel again? Your behavior answers that question far more than your words ever could. During this phase, silence can be as powerful as speech. You don't need to respond to every test immediately or explain yourself. Sometimes the strongest response is emotional neutrality. When she senses that she cannot provoke insecurity, defensiveness, or emotional volatility, her respect increases. Respect is what allows attraction to deepen beyond surface level curiosity. Emotional testing also explains why bringing up commitment or the relationship too early backfires. She is not yet emotionally settled. When you push for clarity, labels, or assurances, you interrupt her internal process. Instead of moving toward you naturally, she feels pressured and retreats. Tests require space to resolve. Your patience is part of the evaluation. As tests continue, they often intensify slightly before they stop. This is a critical moment. She may challenge you more directly, ask pointed questions, or revisit sensitive topics. This doesn't mean things are going backward. It means she's close to deciding. Many men fail here because they misinterpret intensity as rejection. In reality, it's the final confirmation stage. When you pass emotional tests consistently, her behavior begins to shift. The hot and cold becomes warmer. The delays shorten. The teasing softens. Conversations deepen. She stops trying to provoke reactions and starts seeking emotional connection. This transition is subtle but unmistakable when you know what to look for. The key principle throughout this phase is emotional self-mastery. You are not trying to win her back through logic, persuasion, or emotional displays. You are allowing her to experience you as a calm, stable, confident presence. That experience rewires her emotional perception of you. Emotional testing is not something to fear or fight. It's a sign that she's engaged emotionally again, even if she hasn't admitted it to herself. Cold distance means disinterest. Testing means consideration. When she tests, she cares enough to evaluate. The man who understands this no longer reacts impulsively. He no longer seeks validation through her responses. He remains grounded, focused on his purpose, and emotionally independent. Ironically, Iliad's on his purpose and emotionally independent. It is this independence that makes reconnection feel safe and desirable to her. When emotional testing replaces cold distance, it means the emotional door is no longer locked. It may not be wide open yet, but it's unlocked. How you show up during this phase determines whether she walks through it or quietly closes it again. When a woman is close to coming back, one of the most revealing shifts happens quietly and almost invisibly. She begins opening emotional windows, often disguised as casual conversation. To most men, these moments seem ordinary, harmless, or even meaningless. But emotionally, they are anything but. This is the stage where emotional reconnection starts taking form beneath the surface, even before she consciously admits to herself what she's doing. At first, the conversations don't feel romantic. She may reach out about something practical, random, or nostalgic. A simple question, a comment on something you once shared, or a light observation about her life. On the surface, it looks casual. Underneath, it's intentional. Women do not invest emotional energy into men they feel nothing for. Emotional windows only open when she is testing emotional safety and compatibility again. The reason she disguises emotional openness as casual conversation is self-protection. If she openly admits vulnerability too early, she risks rejection, disappointment, or loss of control. Casual conversation gives her plausible deniability. If things don't feel right, she can retreat without emotional exposure. But if things feel safe, those casual conversations slowly deepen on their own. These emotional windows often appear when she shares stress, frustration, or personal challenges. She might talk about work pressure, family issues, loneliness, or uncertainty in her life. This is not random venting. Women instinctively share emotional burdens with men they feel emotionally connected to or want to reconnect with. She is reestablishing emotional intimacy one layer at a time. What matters most here is not the advice you give, but the emotional experience you create. Many men sabotage this phase by trying to fix her problems, give logical solutions, or prove their value through helpfulness. But emotional openness is not about solutions. It's about feeling understood. When she opens up, she's asking, "Do you still get me? Do I feel safe being myself with you?" If your response is calm, present, and emotionally grounded, the window stays open. If your response is judgmental, dismissive, overly analytical, or self centered, it closes quickly. Emotional safety is fragile during this phase. She's not fully back, yet she's testing emotional resonance. Another form of emotional window appears when she reminisces. She may casually mention something you used to do together, a shared memory, or an inside joke. Nostalgia is a powerful emotional bridge. When she brings up the past without bitterness, it means she's reprocessing those memories with a softer emotional lens. She's allowing herself to feel warmth again, even if she doesn't label it as such. This is where many men make the mistake of rushing. They hear nostalgia and assume she wants to get back together. They push the conversation toward commitment, emotions, or the relationship itself. This immediately shuts the window. Emotional windows must be allowed to expand naturally. When you push, she feels exposed and retreats back into emotional safety. Sometimes emotional windows show up as late night conversations. Late hours lower emotional defenses. If she chooses to talk to you when she's tired, reflective, or alone, it's a strong sign that she's emotionally drawn to your presence. These conversations often drift into deeper territory without either of you planning it. That's emotional gravity at work. Another subtle sign is when she asks questions about your inner world rather than surface level facts. Instead of "what are you doing?" she asks, "How have you been really?" or "What's been on your mind lately?" This shift signals emotional curiosity turning into emotional investment. She's not just checking in, she's reconnecting emotionally. At this stage, she may also share vulnerabilities she never expressed before, regrets, doubts, fears, or insecurities that weren't present during the relationship. This happens because emotional distance has reduced ego defensiveness. She feels safer expressing parts of herself she once guarded. When this happens, the bond that forms can be deeper than the original connection if handled correctly. Handling it correctly means not using her vulnerability as leverage. Do not bring up the past, blame, or unresolved conflicts. Do not say, "I told you so," or imply superiority. Emotional openness is not an invitation to assert dominance. It's an invitation to create trust. The man who honors her vulnerability without exploiting it becomes emotionally magnetic. These emotional windows also explain why she may suddenly pull back after opening up. Vulnerability creates emotional exposure. After sharing something personal, she may feel emotionally naked and instinctively withdraw to regain balance. This pullback is not rejection, it's regulation. If you chase her during this moment, you confirm her fear. If you remain steady, you reinforce safety. One of the strongest signs that emotional windows are opening is when she seeks your emotional perspective. She may ask how you see something, what you think about a situation, or how you would handle a challenge. This is not about advice, it's about alignment. She's subconsciously checking whether your emotional worldview still resonates with hers. At this point, emotional intimacy is rebuilding even if physical or romantic intimacy hasn't returned yet. Emotional intimacy always comes first for women. It's the foundation upon which desire, attraction, and reconnection rest. Without it, nothing lasts. With it, everything feels natural. This phase also reveals why emotional availability matters more than emotional intensity. You don't need dramatic conversations, emotional confessions, or declarations. What matters is consistency, presence, and calm emotional strength. When she feels that being herself around you feels easy, familiar, and grounding, emotional attachment grows without effort. Another critical aspect is how you talk about your own life. When you share your experiences without complaining, bitterness, or emotional neediness, you create polarity. You show growth without needing validation. This contrast between emotional openness and self-sufficiency is deeply attractive. It tells her you are emotionally available, but not emotionally dependent. As emotional windows remain open, the conversations naturally become more frequent and longer. She initiates more often. She responds more thoughtfully. She remembers details. These are signs that emotional investment is increasing. At this stage, she's no longer just checking in. She's reconnecting emotionally. Eventually, these windows stop feeling like windows and start feeling like doors. She becomes more expressive, more present, and more emotionally engaged. The casual disguise fades because she no longer feels the need to hide her emotional interest. But this only happens if you never force the process. The biggest danger during this phase is impatience. Emotional reconnection cannot be rushed. The moment you try to define the relationship, revisit old wounds, or demand clarity, you shift the emotional tone from safety to pressure. Pressure kills emotional openness. Understanding emotional windows changes how you behave entirely. You stop trying to impress. You stop trying to convince. You stop trying to win her back. Instead, you become a space where emotions are welcome but not demanded. That space is rare and irresistible. When a woman opens emotional windows disguised as casual conversation, it means she is emotionally leaning in while protecting herself at the same time. She has given you access without surrendering control. How you handle that access determines whether she steps fully back into your life or quietly closes the window forever. Emotional reconnection is not built through words, promises, or logic. It's built through how she feels in your presence over time. When emotional windows open, your job is simple but not easy. Remain grounded, present, and emotionally steady. If you do, those windows turn into open doors, and reconnection happens naturally without force. When a woman moves closer to coming back, one of the most decisive shifts happens in her behavior rather than her words. Her energy changes. The tension, resistance, and need to maintain emotional control slowly dissolve, and in their place appears something far more revealing, a natural pull toward reconnection. This is the stage where her behavior transitions from subtle resistance to emotional alignment, and it is one of the clearest indicators that her internal decision is forming. In the earlier phases, she is guarded. She controls communication, limits emotional exposure, and keeps the upper hand by staying distant or unpredictable. Control is her shield. It allows her to feel safe and protected from emotional risk. But as her feelings reawaken, maintaining that control becomes emotionally exhausting. Desire and safety begin pulling in the same direction, and resistance weakens. You start noticing small behavioral shifts. She responds more consistently. Her tone softens. She shows genuine interest instead of neutral politeness. These changes often go unnoticed because men expect dramatic signs, but attraction rarely announces itself loudly. It reveals itself through alignment. When she begins aligning with you emotionally, she stops trying to manage the interaction and starts participating in it. One of the earliest signs of this shift is responsiveness without strategy. She no longer takes excessive time to reply just to appear unaffected. Her messages become more natural, more fluid. She reacts in the moment rather than calculating distance. This doesn't mean she suddenly becomes fully available. It means emotional walls are lowering. As control fades, agreement increases. She becomes more receptive to your ideas, your humor, your perspective. This doesn't mean blind compliance, it means emotional resonance. She feels in sync again. When two people align emotionally, cooperation replaces resistance. This is not something she consciously decides, it's something she feels. Another key change is presence. When she engages with you, she's actually there. Conversations don't feel rushed or distracted. She asks follow-up questions, she remembers details. She stays emotionally engaged rather than keeping one foot out the door. Presence is a form of investment, and investment signals intention. This phase is often triggered by the realization that she might lose you permanently, not through threats or ultimatums, but through your genuine emotional independence. When she senses that you are no longer waiting, chasing, or emotionally tethered to her reactions, a subtle urgency appears. Not panic, but awareness. She begins to feel that access to you is no longer guaranteed. This awareness shifts her behavior from evaluation to reconnection. She no longer tests as intensely because she already feels the answer emotionally. Instead of pushing, she leans. Instead of resisting, she flows. Control becomes unnecessary because trust is rebuilding. You may notice that she initiates contact more often, not dramatically but consistently. She checks in without a specific reason. She shares moments from her day. These are not random habits. They are emotional bids for connection. She is weaving herself back into your emotional space. Another powerful indicator is flexibility. Earlier, she may have been rigid about boundaries, schedules, or communication. Now she adapts. She makes time. She adjusts. Flexibility is emotional openness expressed through behavior. When a woman is emotionally detached, she is inflexible. When she is emotionally reconnecting, she bends without effort. This shift also shows up in how she handles conflict or tension. Instead of withdrawing or becoming defensive, she seeks resolution. She may soften her tone, clarify misunderstandings, or show empathy. This is a significant change. Emotional alignment makes disconnection feel uncomfortable, so she instinctively works toward harmony. At this stage, many men sabotage everything by trying to regain control themselves. They sense her leaning in and respond by pushing for commitment, exclusivity, or emotional declarations. This reintroduces pressure and disrupts alignment. Emotional alignment thrives in freedom, not force. The correct response during this phase is to remain steady and consistent. You don't accelerate or slow down artificially, you allow her to meet you where you are. This reinforces her sense of safety and confirms her emotional choice. Another subtle but important sign is reduced defensiveness. She no longer feels the need to justify her past decisions, explain herself, or maintain emotional distance to logic. Instead, she allows emotions to exist without explanation. This indicates emotional acceptance, which is a prerequisite for reconnection. As alignment deepens, you may notice physical cues if you meet in person. Her body language opens. Eye contact lingers. Touch becomes more natural. Physical alignment follows emotional alignment, not the other way around. These cues are instinctive responses to emotional comfort and desire. This phase also brings emotional warmth. She laughs more easily. She shows affection in small ways. She expresses appreciation. These behaviors reflect a shift from self-protection to connection. She is no longer guarding herself. She is participating. One of the most important aspects of this stage is that it feels effortless. There's no tension, no power struggle, no emotional tug of war. Conversations flow. Time passes easily. This ease is the result of alignment. When two people are emotionally aligned, interaction feels natural rather than forced. It's important to recognize that this alignment does not happen because of something you said. It happens because of who you became. Your emotional stability, self-respect, and independence created a safe emotional environment. She is responding to that environment, not chasing validation. As this phase continues, her need to control outcomes disappears. She no longer needs to decide everything in advance. She becomes open to spontaneity. Spontaneity is only possible when fear is low. This openness signals trust and emotional readiness. Eventually, emotional alignment becomes visible to others. Friends may notice her talking about you differently. Her energy around you changes. She appears relaxed and connected. These external signs reflect an internal decision, solidifying. The most dangerous moment in this phase is complacency. Just because she is aligning doesn't mean the work is done. Alignment must be maintained through consistency. Emotional whiplash, mixed signals, or sudden insecurity can undo progress quickly. However, when handled correctly, this phase leads naturally to reconnection without drama. There is no big conversation, no forced confession. The relationship simply resumes in a healthier form because emotional alignment has already been established. Understanding this shift teaches you a critical lesson. Attraction is not about control, it's about alignment. When you stop trying to control outcomes and focus on controlling yourself, emotional alignment becomes inevitable. When her behavior shifts from control to reconnection, it means her heart has already chosen before her mind catches up. Your role is not to convince, persuade, or pressure, but to remain the grounded, confident presence that made alignment possible in the first place.